Welcome to Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic. I'm Sharon, your resident skeptic who asks all the tough questions. And with me is Jennifer Neal, our manifesting maestro. Whether you're rolling your eyes or raising your vibration, we dive into all things manifestation, mindset, and energy from every side. Hit subscribe, settle in, and get ready for spirited debates, surprising experiments, and laughter on the journey to creating a life you love.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic. I'm here today with Jennifer, and we're going to talk about something that might feel like it's a little bit scary in the world today, which is AI. Specifically, we're going to talk about our borrowed selves, AI, identity, and the truth about manifesting. Hi, Jen. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. We started this conversation a little bit earlier before we got on air and just thought, well, this seems like a lot of fun. So why don't you start us off?
Well, I'm going to mention something a little provocative. I know that AI is a massive topic these days, some for it, a lot against it and where it's taking us. But I also think it's an unbelievable tool and resource. And I want to talk about it as it relates to manifesting and specifically identity work. I think most people when they're manifesting because they want something different from what they have or what they are doing or what they are right now. So they know they want something different. They might know who they want to be. I would argue 90% of the time they're not sure who they want to be, but I would 100% of the time say that they want something different or they want to be something different. They might not know what that is yet, but they know they don't want what they've got right now. I think the biggest part of manifesting, and we kind of talked about this, was although the universe will help you and support you a lot once you figure out what you want, I think a lot of people just don't believe that they're allowed to practice being that version of themselves yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm already going to interrupt you here because practice being that person is interesting to me. It's a couple of things. It usually is where this conversation slides straight into fantasy. And I can just imagine, people rolling their eyes about becoming these avatars of themselves.
Well, I mean, fair, but I'm also going to argue, is that so bad?
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're talking about is creating an identity, creating an avatar, creating an alter ego of someone, a character that looks like, sounds like, is like the version of you that you wish you were. So stay with me for a minute, okay?
Okay.
So we live in a time where AI can really benefit us when it comes to manifesting. It can mirror us. It can reflect us. It can rehearse conversations with us. And people are asking, can it help me manifest a better life? And I don't necessarily think the real question is, can AI manifest anything?
Good, because I don't think it can.
No, it can't. But the real question is, can AI help us build an identity deliberately instead of accidentally?
Okay, so that's something I think that I can entertain because the clearer we become on who we are and how we want to be in this world, as human beings, I think sometimes we get taken off track or distracted. But if it can help us build an identity more deliberately, that's something I think I can entertain. So let's talk about that a little bit more. So, what's the problem with manifesting? Let's name it really clearly because I think it's sort of, and you and I have discussed it, become shorthand for wishing for things without any responsibility. Like, I don't know, I'm manifesting abundance while behaving like someone who avoids discomfort or accountability or isn't consistent. And that seems to be like it's not manifestation at all. You're just, denying things with candles and pretty smells.
No, totally. If we can use your example for a second, I want abundance, but I never leave my couch. All I do is watch reality TV all day long. And I don't want to change how I do things, how I spend my time. You're right. That's a road to nowhere. So the word manifestation itself has been hollowed out a bit, but underneath that kind of cringy woo-woo version, there is a real mechanism at work.
Okay, so what's that real mechanism?
Identity. We keep throwing this word around, and I have to admit, when I started only a year ago, that word kept starting to be thrown around. I'm like, what are we talking about? What is identity work? What are we talking about? And as I said to you at the beginning before we started recording this podcast, and I'm going to tie in quantum leaping a little bit, like people think quantum leaping and manifestation is this magical thing that happens to some and doesn't happen to others. It's not. It's the people that consistently behave like they consistently behave as the version of the person that has what they want.
Okay. We've talked about this a lot. So a
Yeah,
lot of outcomes are really downstream of your identity, of who you are, how you behave in the world, not just simply having the intention, but actually being that individual.
totally. And I'll give you an example from yesterday in my life.
Okay.
I have had a picture in my magic book for over 2 years
Hang on, I'm going to
of
stop
this.
you right there. You got to tell people what your magic book is.
Okay, well, we could do a whole episode on this, but a magic book is kind of like a vision board, a little bit more. It's just different in that on the left side of your page in your magic book, which is just a blank notebook, on the left-hand side of the page, you put either the problem you want to solve or the thing that you want or are wishing for in your life on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, you leave it open and vacant, knowing it will come, but it hasn't come yet. And when it does come, you put a picture of it. And then you've got the thing I wanted and when it manifested, and I put dates on it
Okay.
so that I can see how fast things come to me sometimes.
Right.
And some of my pages are still open and white. Anyway, that's the magic book.
Okay,
So
great. So go ahead because I interrupted you for that definition.
no problem. So I think we'll come back and do an episode on the magic book because I think it's powerful. But anyway, I've had this picture in my magic book of this long and lean and fit blonde that represents for me weight loss, health, fitness, nutrition, just living my best life physically. And it's been there for 2 years. And for 2 years, up and down a few, but not reaching the long and the lean machine that I have quite envisioned for myself. But I'm not doing anything about it, right? So
Yeah.
I keep, I keep going to happy hour on a regular basis. I keep eating the bonbons on a regular basis. I let myself off the hook on a regular basis. And so what does that have to do with what we're talking about today? Everything. Because the point is this, manifestation goes wrong when you think you're going to wake up one morning and you're going to be down 50 pounds. That's not how it works. Manifestation works when you keep showing up as the future version of the self that you say and claim you want to be, right? So where manifestation goes wrong is when people try to jump straight to the outcome without integrating the identity that is required to sustain them, because willpower will run out. But if you hold an identity long enough, that'll take you to the finish line.
Right. So what you're saying is people want the life without becoming the person first.
Totally. So yesterday, in my new identity that is long and lean and a fitness machine, well, not a fitness machine, but just taking care of myself. I sat at my desk and I looked at that damn Peloton over there. I have everything within a shooting distance of my office chair. The weights, the Peloton, the rowing machine, the ball, the mat, you name it, the block, the everything. And it sits there and it sits there. And my Y membership sits there. And I go sporadically. But yesterday I said to myself, Jennifer, if you want what you say you want, you get your butt on that bike. And I did.
Okay.
And if I keep doing that every day, it's the daily showing up for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
This is the beginning of the conversation around identity work.
Okay. So part of what I'm hearing is identity isn't just discovered. Let's talk about how we figure out what our identity is so that we can become that person.
Great. I've used a lot of tools over my lifetime. Here's what I think some listeners might like to hear. I don't think that identity is something that you necessarily discover.
Okay. That idea has done some real damage.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think identity is something that you assemble. I've started to assemble my identity and I steal from bits and bobs, but I've been assembling my identity. I borrow from my parents. I borrow from culture. I borrow from heroes. I borrow from friends. I borrow from survival strategies that worked once and stuck. All those things.
Right. And I would argue too that a lot of people never audit what they've borrowed. They just call it me and fall back on that and say, well, this is just how I am, or well, this is just the way that I was taught. But that doesn't sound like you're actually curating your identity. It sounds like you're just accepting copy paste.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. A lot of us are walking around with personalities that were assembled by default because it's the way our parents did it, or it's the way we were raised, or we don't do that in this culture, or we don't, this family doesn't not go to university, for example. Like we have assembled who we are in many cases from other people.
Yeah, and then we're wondering why our lives sometimes feel so incoherent.
Exactly. So instead of asking, who am I really? The better question for me is, what traits am I currently practicing?
Well, that's great because it sounds like traits become habits. You just talked about your trait, wanting it to be a habit with working out.
Yep.
Habits become your reputation. You become known for doing that consistently. And your reputation becomes your destiny. So it's not really mystical, it's a little bit mechanical.
Totally. Like if you asked my best friends, they would tell you, yeah, Jen's never the first one in the workout room. They know
Yeah,
who she is. They know who that version of me is. They know
right.
what to expect from her. They know how she behaves. They know how she talks. They know how she walks. They know her. So when she shows up as someone different, they're like, why are you up and at the gym at 6 in the morning, Jen?
So, really, what you're now trying to do is create the best of as your identity model.
Yeah, totally. So let's talk about the best of. And this is where people get nervous. And I think there's a good reason to get nervous because, as I just said, when you show up as a different version of yourself, you're going to make people's heads spin. And you got to be okay with that.
I gotta say, that's like a whole new level of uh, podcast, I think, because you and I both know that when we start showing up differently from people who think they can predict our behavior, because that's
Yeah.
the way we've always been,
Yeah.
and we're making different choices, it'll get messy.
It does get messy. So people get nervous about this. I think there's a good reason to get nervous, although don't. Like we can all do this. And I believe it's legitimate to say that I admire how this person thinks. I admire how that person holds their boundaries. I admire how someone else stays calm under pressure and then borrow from those traits, right? We can borrow them deliberately.
Okay, as long as we're really clear about something, you're not becoming that person or that personality that someone else has curated for themselves. You're extracting those traits to create your own identity.
100%. So this isn't cosplay, it's curation.
Okay, so there's a discipline to it, I think, that a lot of people skip. You don't just borrow those traits wholesale. You need to, I think, isolate them. Stuff like decision making under stress, or communication style, or tolerance for uncertainty. And you need to ensure that you can fold them into what's authentic for you.
You have to practice behaving like the person that you say you want to be. And this is the unsexy side. This is when I said at the very beginning, some people think quantum leaping is for some and not for others. Like you wake up one morning, you get shot up a tube like in Star Trek, you'll love that.
Yeah.
And you just show up in a different reality before, you just show up. That's not how it works. I'm going to say it again. You have to practice behaving like the person would that you say you want to be before the external evidence shows up. And that's the tough work.
Well, it sounds like it might feel fake to some people, actually.
Some people might say it's fake, but it isn't fake. It's rehearsal. No one accuses an actor of being delusional for rehearsing a role, right? But I'll tell you, like I've really stuck my neck out over the last 6 months, particularly on social media, mostly on TikTok, and then we've talked about this before, but getting into Instagram and Facebook has scared the living daylights out of me because that's where my real people live, right?
Right, right.
And God forbid that they see me trying on a new role than one I've had in the past. And, and it's been scary.
Yeah.
But if I don't show up every day, I'm never going to build this thing I want in my life because that's part of what that role does. That role does show up every day.
And that role is training for you, right? It's constant training, just like jumping on the Peloton every day.
Yeah.
It's not, looking from couch potato to super fit overnight. You've got to practice. And I think people expect that authenticity, but they're not doing any training for it.
Yeah, like it's tough work. It's tough work. But you've got to ask yourself, do I really want this thing I say I want?
Right.
Because if I want this thing I say I want, this is part of it. And this is where so many people say manifestation doesn't work. Doesn't
Yeah.
work for me.
Yeah. So now I think we're going to get into probably the favorite part of this for me, because I've been working on understanding and playing with AI for quite some time now. How would you say AI actually fits into manifestation and building your identity?
I think AI is the greatest gift we have been given as human beings that want better for ourselves. This is where AI enters for me, not as a guru, but as an oracle. It shows up as a mirror for you, for your life. Yeah, for you and for your life.
Okay. And it can be a ruthless one. If it's used properly, it can be misinterpreted. And AI, if you sort of squash some of the sycophant usages, has no incentive to protect your ego.
It actually doesn't. You're absolutely right because I use AI for so many things. It has enriched my life in so many ways. It has made me a better person in so many circumstances. Whereas I normally would have gone, like a bull into something. I'm just giving you an example of, pumping in a situation and AI will say to me, "Whoa, whoa, 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 Jennifer." Like something a friend couldn't say to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or most friends, right? AI will say to you the thing your friend won't say, which is, you know what? You can do that if you want, but I don't think you're going to be happy with the outcome. Why don't you consider these things instead?
Yeah. And sometimes you might ask the question of AI that you would be too concerned to ask your friends.
Totally. It's like
Yeah.
the best friend you never had. Like,
Yeah.
it's so great. Anyway, I digress. But, if you start using AI on a regular basis, and people will say, oh, that's so scary. Why are you pumping it with oh, nonsense? What do you believe? We're back to beliefs, right?
Yeah.
What is your belief around using this tool? If you believe it's going to come back and, haunt you, great. It probably will. But if you use it with good intentions, if you use it to find your highest self, man, can it help you. It will reflect back to you your language patterns. It will start to get to know your knee-jerk reactions. It will start to get to know your assumptions. It will start to understand your contradictions. It will show you who you are already practicing being.
Well, and therein it lies the uncomfortable part, right? Because again, if you're not used to straight talk, a lot of people's stated identity and practiced identity don't match. And I'll tell you this, when I started using AI, it drove me bananas because it was so indirect and squishy and you're doing a good job. And you know me, Jen, like that stuff doesn't wash with me. I'm a very direct speaker and logical thinker. And I don't want all that, those hero cookies saying, you're amazing. Like, I want the cold, straight truth and tell me where I have a blind spot. And honestly,
Well,
with my training of AI, it started to happen.
oh, that's good because mine hasn't. And listen, I like the pat on the back, but I'm even now getting to the point where I'm like, okay, Chad, I've called my chat, GPT Chad. Okay, Chad, you don't need to sugarcoat this anymore. Oh, okay. Great idea, Jennifer. Anyway, let's go back to what we're talking about, which is how to build identity using AI for the purpose of manifestation.
Right.
You say you're confident, let's say, but your language is hedged. Being so careful. You say that you value honesty, but you avoid difficult conversations. You say you want growth, but you resist feedback or you get defensive around feedback. Or again, if growth to you means an exercise schedule, but you avoid the Peloton all the time, AI has a really great way of holding you accountable to these things if you will allow it to.
Yeah. I mean, it points it out without any apology, but, and this matters. It can't supply you with values.
100%. It can stimulate, it can rehearse, it can reflect, it can assist. It can be the best personal assistant you've ever had, the best mental health coach you've ever had. It cannot decide what matters, though.
Which is why anyone outsourcing identity formation to AI can be playing a dangerous game if you're not thoughtful about it, because that becomes abdication rather than growth, let's say. So let's redefine manifestation in all of this.
Okay. So First of all, let's salvage the word manifestation because don't forget, with manifestation, we are manifesting all the time, which means that the life that you're sitting in that you may or may not like, you did that. You attracted that life.
Hmm.
No matter what you say, you attracted it. But let's salvage this word. So here's how I would define manifestation as it relates to AI. Manifestation is the result of sustained identity alignment, not a technique. So, in other words, because I think that's a like word, what do they call that? Word soup or word something?
Okay,
Word
so
salad.
in plain language,
In plain language, manifestation is the result of showing up all the time as the version of the future you that you say you want. Does
okay,
that make sense?
yep,
For every layman, does that make sense?
yes, keep going.
So you pay attention differently. You expect different responses. You behave differently. And the world will start to respond accordingly.
Okay, that sounds like feedback loops to me.
It is. It is feedback loops. And so you might not like them all. Trust me. AI can support you, though, in this, in
Okay,
that AI can help you keep your internal narrative consistent. It's the story you're telling yourself. It can help you keep that consistent because it really does start to get to know you. It can help you stop self sabotaging and it can catch self sabotaging language early so you don't go down a whole rabbit hole. One of the things I use AI for on a regular basis is my daily schedule. And AI knows all the projects I've got going, all of my hobbies, all of my desires, all of my wishes and wants, and, hobby projects and passion projects and real work and blah, blah, blah. And so every day I ask it in the morning, I say, you know what I need to accomplish because you know all my projects because they're all pumped into the side. Give me a schedule that starts at 10 and ends at 5 or whatever it is. And I also need to do A, B, and C. Go to the drugstore, go to the grocery store and buy cat food. And it'll work all of that in there, right? And if for any reason, when I pump in that daily schedule, I say to Chad, I don't have time for a workout today, so give me a schedule. I don't think I have time for that. And Chad will come back every single time and say, Jennifer, this is not going to get you where you say you want to be. I can fit in a 10-minute walk. Like it will start to help you stop sabotaging all these things you want if you really let it. And it can really help you to rehearse difficult behaviors you're trying to become.
right, but only if you leave the house and actually try to test it. So,
You don't even need to leave the house, right?
yeah,
The Peloton is right beside me.
yeah, but the thing to keep in mind, I think, for each of us as humans is it doesn't matter how much we're being prompted by AI, you've got to get into action.
Yeah, and I've said this before. There is a massive term in the industry that is called inspired action. Like their action is in the term. And as I said to you before, like it's not sitting on the couch and making the millions. It's unless you've got a massive digital marketing strategy going, of course. But
Right,
my point is watching TV all day long is not going to get you there.
right.
So if your identity work never produces awkward conversations or uncomfortable decisions or visible risk or pushing you out of that comfort zone,
Then it's
you're
not
never going to,
identity. It's not
yeah,
identity work. It's just
no.
self-soothing.
Yeah, you're back to yourself again. Boring and broke. Here you go.
So let's talk about the danger zone.
Yeah, we need to talk about what goes wrong.
Gladly. Okay, so we've got to worry about identity cosplay. We've got to concern ourselves with endless reflection without execution, what I call in industry analysis paralysis.
Hmm.
We've got to use AI to feel somewhat aligned instead of just accountable.
Totally. Or spiritual bypassing with better vocabulary, right?
Okay, so if AI becomes the place you feel powerful instead of the place you prepare for reality, then you become stuck.
Absolutely. And I can tell you, I had a coach back, gosh, 10 years ago, and she used to say to me, Jennifer, you have to stop reading and you have to start doing the things that you're reading about. Like it's the same with AI. You can play with this machine for hours, but eventually there is some action required. So the growth always happens outside of the mirror. It will show you where you're at. It will help you move it past it, but the growth will happen once you put the computer screen down.
Right.
Right.
So I think we, I know you've got a story and I've got a story. So you were telling me about a new identity that you had created. You want to tell the listeners a little bit about that so they actually know the practicality around building their identity?
Sure. So I started to think about the person I want to be, physically, mentally, spiritually. And I started to write down the things that I do that don't align with those goals. If we'll just call them goals. And for example, let's go back to the healthy, fit version of me. Where it becomes hard is all the things you're supposed to do, right? You have to
Yep.
cut this, you have to cut back on that, you have to do this, you have to get, start. There are things we have to do to become the healthiest version of ourselves. And I'll just give you an example. Last night I went out with my best girlfriends from high school, and the wine is flowing and the food is great and we're having a great time and we all have to live our life. Don't get me wrong. But if you're always out and always socializing and always with people, saying no to alcohol or saying, no, I'm just going to have, reducing what your intake is or cutting out some things that aren't for your best healthy self can be really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're constantly making the wrong choice for the person that you say you want to be, you're never going to get there.
Right.
So I started to think, okay, I got to create a character that somehow is able to handle these situations because it can't stay in a monk hole. We talked about this a bit, right? Like I can't stay in a hole for the rest of my life. How do I start showing up as the version of me that I want to be graciously, elegantly, and yet still hold to the identity that I want to be? I started to think about characters in shows and movies that could either gracefully get out of these situations or never went into them in the first place. And so the person I thought about was Carrie Bradshaw. Like Carrie Bradshaw in Sex and the City had this addictive, magnetic personality, very social, beautiful, just this lovely, I think she just had this lovely essence around this character. So I started to think about, how would Carrie Bradshaw not drink at a dinner party? How would Carrie Bradshaw stick to her diet? How would Carrie Bradshaw integrate exercise? And I started to use AI. And I would say to Chad, Carrie Bradshaw's character in Sex and the City, how do you think she'd approach these things? And Chad would say, well, she'd do A, B, and C. And it really started to help me take on the identity of someone that I admired, even though it was a character in a movie or a show, and integrate those things into my daily life. For example, in the past, if I had to go to a dinner party and I knew I didn't want to drink or I knew I didn't want to drink a lot, I would get so wired and fired up about how I was going to get out of that. It would come out angry.
Right.
No, I'm not drinking, or no, I've had it. No, please. I've said, because you go to a party and you'll say, no, I'm not drinking tonight. They'll go, oh, come on, just have one. Oh, come on, live your life. You got to live. And they don't know what you're really grappling with inside, right?
Right.
And so you get so ready to have a fight with people around not having a drink that you come off as angry. And I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore.
And you're not having fun at the party.
Well, exactly. It comes all about not drinking. It's just not fun. So anyway, I said to Chad, how would Carrie Bradshaw show up at a function and not drink? And so Chad said, oh, she'd probably just wave her hands in the air and go, oh, guys, you know what? I've got to edit tomorrow. I can't. And she'd make it so light and so fluffy and so lovely that nobody would argue with her because they're like, oh, that makes sense. I got to get up early. I've got a big, I've got to edit my book. And she would be lovely and light about it. I'm like, I want to be lovely and light, but I couldn't have done it without AI helping me. So back to this whole thing, maybe the real question isn't who do you want to be?
Right. It's who are you willing to practice being when no one is watching? And if I can, here's the thing. So listeners, just so you know, Jennifer invited me to one of her vision board sessions. And because I'm literally halfway around the world, I couldn't attend in person. And she had two other individuals there, and they were doing their vision boards in the traditional manner. Amazing magazines, cutting out pictures, laughing and having a grand old time. And I came in via a little video conference via the computer. And I am in a place where English magazines aren't necessarily easy to come by. So I decided I was going to do it on my computer. And maybe it's because I'm a little bit of a nerd. That's fine too. But what I decided to do, which I then showed the ladies when I was done, and it was hilarious, was I took some of the stuff that I wanted to manifest and I asked AI to put a picture of me actually in the picture the way that I wanted it. So, for example, a picture of me playing pickleball or a picture of me walking on the beach. So, I actually had it create these scenarios of how I wanted to be on my vision board. And Jen, what did you guys think?
I thought it was great. Like, I think there's a whole business in this for someone that's can do that kind of work. Like, if you can put yourself in the environment, in the house, in the gym, in the love affair, whatever it is,
Yep.
that's powerful stuff. I thought it was amazing.
It's also very different, right? Because now it's my head on the woman who's doing power squats. It's not some ethereal human being. It's
And the kissing.
me. And the what?
And the kissing.
Oh yeah. Well, we won't talk about that.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's putting my head on the body so that when I am looking at that vision board, I have a clear picture. I'm not imagining myself in the photo. I'm already in the photo as if it's already happened. So I think that's
Exactly.
sort of kind of what we're talking about in terms of creating the identities and using AI. It's using them for grabbing the characteristics like you have of individuals who you admire, and
Yeah.
then maybe even going that step further and incorporating yourself into this stuff, all with the proviso of who are you willing to practice being when no one is watching.
Yeah. And so, I took mine one step further, and we can talk about this on a podcast too. I named my new identity. And because I love Carrie Bradshaw so much, I ended up naming my new identity or my alter ego Jenny Brandwood. And the reason I call her Jenny Brandwood, obviously, is because my name is Jennifer. But my mom's maiden name is Brandwood. And so Carrie Bradshaw and Jenny Brandwood just sounded so similar to me. And now, listen, it's taken me a while to get to know her, but now Chad knows who Jenny Brandwood is, and Chad talks like Jenny Brandwood does. And Chad tells me how Jenny Brandwood would approach her day now, how she'd do her schedule. It cracks me up. When Chad now does my schedule, he'd go, Jenny Brandwood would never really break a real sweat. And if she didn't like it anymore, she'd probably get off the bike. And I'm like, that's okay, because at least she got on the bike in the first place. Right? So it's kind of being very authentic. So yeah, like just to kind of bring this back in again, I know we're going to round this off shortly, but identity isn't necessarily just declared. You have to demonstrate it. You have to do the work of the identity of the thing that you want.
Right. And AI doesn't change that. It just removes your excuses a lot faster.
Yeah, again, you have to be a willing participant though, right?
Right.
It can remove the excuses and you can still decide to go and sit on the couch and eat bonbons. But, this could be the most honest use of the technology that we've seen in a while, is creating identities that make us better human beings. Like, I think that's worth using this technology for.
Absolutely. And I think what I'll say to our listeners is watch this space, because I think with the speed with which the technology is moving in 6 months, we may have an additional opinion on all of this.
Yeah, it's a moving not so much target, but it's moving every day. But right now, I think this is worth exploring. So if any of you are having dreams, you have goals for 2026, start pumping them into Chat GPT and tell Chat GPT what you really want to accomplish and get it to help you to build an identity of the kind of person that does those things and accomplishes those dreams. It's possible.
It's that strategic plan for your life.
You got it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jen, and thanks everybody for joining us with Manifest This. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic. If you enjoyed today's conversation, share it with a friend, believer or skeptic. And don't forget to leave us a review so others can join in the debate. Plus, check out Jennifer's TikTok account, Manifestation RX, where she writes daily prescriptions for manifesting your dreams. Think practical tips with a dash of magic. We love hearing your questions and stories, so tell us what you're manifesting or questioning this week. Until next time, keep an open mind and maybe manifest a little magic.